Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Jeff 650 Cycle, and I am doing another CX500 Commute Part 2. Why am I doing Part 2? I'll get to that. I'll explain all that. Talk about the history of this bike. I have a little bit longer commute than what I had last fall, so that's kind of why I wanted to do this. This bike, it's a little cold-blooded. It sat out in the sun all day, so that's definitely helped it warm up. Once I get rolling, I'll talk a little bit about that stuff and whatever else comes up. My dad's house is on the way, so I got to stop and check on him. My son, who actually owns this bike now, is over there today, so stop and see everybody. She is a little cold-blooded. Alright, a little history on this bike for those of you that don't know or haven't watched Part 1. I'll link Part 1 down in the description if you're interested. It's on my channel as well. This is a I believe it's an 81, it might be a 1980 CX500. I had a motor in my garage, I believe it's a 78 or 79 CX500. My buddy of mine gave me the motor, and so I was always kind of looking for something to do with it. And last summer, this bike came up, and the only thing it needed was a motor. It had the carbs, it had everything on it. I was so amazed that I actually found something that I didn't have to source a bunch of other parts for. Other than some cables and stuff, it all went back together pretty good. This bike itself has almost 27,000 on it. The motor, I think, is probably in that same range. So once I got it all together, I was going to sell it, and my son was interested in it. He got his endorsement last fall and was looking for a bike, and he's like, hey, I kind of like that bike, and I think it's a good bike for him to start out on. It's not so powerful it's going to scare him or anything. It's going to give him a good sense of riding and let him practice those skills. Get used to riding before he gets something a little more substantial. Yeah, I don't know, you might like this bike enough to keep it for a while. It's rolling pretty good. I tried to do a morning commute, and it was so foggy this morning that I couldn't hardly see the road. And by the time I got to work, the cover on the GoPro was all steamed up. Not steamed up, but had condensation all over it. One thing I did notice this morning was I need to move the travel area of the clutch back just a little bit. It's right out on the end. I don't like that. I will talk to Alex and see what he thinks about it. I used to ride the bike with 6 gears, so you hear me upshift, that's why. Why did I want to do a Part 2? Last fall, my commute was about 8 miles one way, so I stretched it out and got a little bit of extra miles on it, but the bike itself wasn't running all that great. And I noted that in the video, and did some work on the carburetors, cleaned them out a little bit, and it definitely improved the performance of this. I don't think that it's still 100%, but it's running pretty good. He said he checked the mileage on it. He got 43 miles to the gallon, which in my opinion is probably a little low. I was riding a GL650 and averaging 47. So that's why I think that the 43 is a little bit low. It's a smaller bike. And I don't know how he's been riding it. He's usually a pretty cautious rider, but I'm sure he's tried to stretch it out a little bit. So there's that. But I wanted to do another one just to show this bike because it is a nice bike and they are a nice model. They just run super good, in my opinion. Like I'm clipping along almost 60 miles an hour, 6,000 RPMs. This bike's not even hesitating one bit. I am going to take this road because there's some curves on this road. Generally, I would go up and take the next road because it's a little straighter shot, but in the area of the country I live in, it is long, straight, flat stretches of pavement with farm fields in between. I live in central Michigan and there's not a lot of twisties. So when you get a road locally that has a few twists, you find it and you go down it as much as possible. Got to get some wear on the sides of the tires. I've replaced a lot of tires on my bikes and they're usually wore out in the middle because of the terrain that I ride in. So this bike really likes to run at 50 miles an hour. If I'm not paying attention and, you know, just me listening to the bike, how it feels, how it, you know, just kind of playing it by ear, and then I look down and it's like, no, 50 miles an hour, that's about what it likes to run. This is the only CX500 I've ever ridden, I've ever owned. Like I said, I did just sell my GL650, which is a considerably different beast. Even though it's essentially the same, it is different. I might need to check the air in that back tire. It feels like it might be a little bit low. It didn't look low sitting there, but coming up to these corners, it's singing a little bit to me. This is the twisty part. Now I've been doing this on my bike. Like I said, I just recently sold my GL650. Fantastic bike, loved it. Needed something a little more comfortable for long distance touring. And did something I thought I'd never do. I bought a Harley Davidson Ultra Classic Electric Glide. So I've been riding that and yeah, I like it. It's pretty dang comfortable. Get a little twisty fun going on there. Yeah, and the Ultra's got a 6-speed, that's why I keep shifting up. It just feels like and that is what I've read has been, it was one of the biggest complaints with these bikes when they were new, was they needed another gear. Like I know, I'm pretty sure the XS400s of the era have a 6-speed, and I know that the KZ440s of this era have a 6-speed. So it stands to reason that, you know, it feels like this needs a little bit more gear on the top end. I would concur with that, although it's not an end-all be-all for a bike. It still rolls pretty good. Rolling up to my dad's now, so I'm gonna shut the camera off. And we'll get back at it once we start rolling home. And we're back. Alex, I guess, spent the afternoon over there. Dad was making sausage, smoking sausage, so just hanging out. He sighted in my pellet gun for me so that I can hopefully take care of the bunny problem in my garden. There's that 6th gear that's not there. So comparing this to the GL650 that I had, obviously the GL650 had a fairing and bags. It was a full dress bike, and but aside from that, the big thing with it was power. It definitely had a little bit more power. I want to say the gears were a little bit different. They stretched out a little bit more. Although I do like the top gear on this. Top gear on this, I can run anywhere from 45 to whatever top speed is. It seems comfortable in that range. I always like to look at the driver of the car going by, seeing where they're looking. I think she was looking at her phone. Couldn't tell on that one. Usually if you see one veering over or just riding the line and then coming back, I look really hard at those, and 9 times out of 10 they're on their phone. And they've never even seen me, so it's a little scary. Yeah, this morning it was so foggy that right along, and there was a car in front of me a ways up there, and there was a semi going to make a left turn, and the car went by, and the semi started the turn because he had been at a stop. He started the turn, and like I was on the brakes already at that point. He was close enough. And then he saw me, so I would have stopped, but just because of the fog, it was really hard to see. See, we're running 60 miles an hour, and we're at 6,500 RPMs, and you know, a lot of what I read was it seems a little buzzy at higher speeds, and it's definitely doing that. I don't think it's a deal killer for this bike. It's still a decent bike. Do I think that he's going to be able to keep up with me on my bike, like when we go on trips? If we're doing 55, 60, yeah, but if we're not, it's going to be a stretch, because I know it'll do it, but it's working really hard to do it. This is a much more comfortable commuter bike than I would say a touring bike. If this was what I had to commute on, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't ride much over 60 most days anyways. And the only reason that I ride on the expressway now is because I have the Ultra, and it handles it really well. With the GL, I never rode it on the expressway unless I absolutely had to. And the GL, it would get up to 70, 75, about like this gets up to 60, and get a little buzzy there. And there was one day I rode at 80 miles an hour for miles on the expressway, and I think I got like 36 miles to the gallon, and that bike was good for 47 usually. Ooh, yes, we need to work on these front brakes. They're a little squishy. I may end up buying a carb kit for this, and going through and changing a bunch of stuff with new stuff, just because we've been through the carburetor so many times that it's like, if we haven't found it yet, is, you know, maybe a carb kit will help, because I'm feeling a little bit of hesitation in it. not a lot, but just a little. And especially on takeoff, it's not where it should be on takeoff. And Alex has mentioned that too. So we'll see if it clears up. I've told him we need to run some seafoam through it. I mean, I know that's not a miracle cure, but it does help when you run a cleaner through it like that. The other big difference without the fairing, getting used to that wind again, and I'm serious, it's been 11 years, maybe 12 that I've ridden with a fairing. So finding the difference of that. I mean, before that I never rode with one. I had a KZ1000 that I used to ride 100 miles an hour, and never had a fairing on that. It never bothered me. Of course, I had a full face helmet with it too, and it's not bad with a full face on this. It is, you know, a motorcycle. You want the feel of the wind in your hair and whatever. So, but I am definitely more comfortable behind the fairing. I just enjoy it more. My previous two bikes had fairings, so definitely something that I do like on a bike. And I just mentioned something to Alex about a windshield on this, because I do have one that would work on here, and he says, nah, I don't think I want one. Alright, not my choice to make. And if it was mine, I don't know if I'd put one on it either, but so at this light, this most ridiculous light in the county, I can go straight or I can do a right turn, and I usually wait and see what the traffic in front of me is doing, because I don't really want to follow that guy in front of me. And we'll see where he goes, and yep, alright, I'm turning. Definitely a smaller, lighter bike than what I am used to. That right there took a way less body English than what I'm used to putting into a turn like that. That's been something today that there's been a comparison with me today. I mean, I put 22,000 miles on my GL650. I put 1,200 on this year before I sold it. But then, you know, switching to that bigger, heavier bike, that Harley is big and it's heavy. So figuring out how to ride it is considerably different, and it's been a challenge for me. It's no, I didn't know they had done this with this road. Oh well, it ain't my bike. Yeah, see, you hear that hesitation there? Boy, they couldn't have done this when the school was open. I used to work at the school up here, and seems like it would have been nice if they had done this. That was a terrible section of road. It was all pitted and potholed and filled in, and I think he's probably still got that bike. Come by that house when that family first moved in, and you know, he's got, I don't know, I think it's an Impala or something sitting there, but he also had a motorcycle, like a classic Honda motorcycle that somebody tried to chop or whatever. They always do such a horrible job on them. That's why I've been hesitant to do them, because most of the time you see them and they just look terrible. And I didn't know this one had been redone either, but it looks like most of the chip is off. So yeah, most of the time they're just horribly done and pieced together, and somebody takes a sawzall to it. it gets in over their head, and then they're like, oh, it's a project, I don't have time to finish it. No, you don't have the ability to finish it. Let's call it like it is. Oh, that's why they had this bridge closed a couple weeks ago, apparently. Yeah, I don't really like riding on this stuff. Although it would be much worse if they had just put the rock down. I don't know. People call this type of road surface different things. I always called it chip and tar. They call it chip seal. See, lots of straight roads, lots of farmlands. Farmers are at it today. They got crop coming up already over there. What is that? Corn or beans? So both my boys, my son and my son-in-law, got their endorsement. They both got bikes. Alex got this CX500. Chris got the XS850. I had found both of them last fall, and they decided that they liked them respectively, and so we made the deal, and they've been riding them this year. And it was really interesting that when in talking with both of them, with both Chris and Alex, this was both of their perspective. I am never driving a car again. So something along those lines of never driving the car, parking the car for the summer, that type of thing. And it's interesting, and it makes me feel good to know that they have discovered this. Oh, I haven't seen that house up there. It's been a while since I've been down this road, this part of this road. The pole barn was there last time. But it's interesting in their perspective of being a new rider that they enjoy it as much as they do. So I'm glad for that. I know a lot of people get their endorsement and they don't ride a lot, or they ride a lot the first year and then they just kind of, they lose interest, whatever. But it sounds like they're going to continue doing it. It's sometimes hard for me to explain because it's just something I've always done. And it's something I've always enjoyed, so sometimes it's hard to put into words what it is that I enjoy about it. It's like, I don't know, I just like riding motorcycles. And having done it for so long, it's hard to put a why on it. It just is. Oh yeah, we definitely got to do something with that front brake. She is not working like she should. It's functioning, but man, you got to really pull on it. And I knew it was a little weak. I bled it last year. I bled it a couple times and just couldn't get it to pump up good. I might have to pull that. I don't know if I pulled that caliper apart or not. It might be something in the master too, so it's just not pushing it as hard as it should. I don't know. There's that sixth gear that's not there. I've hit it every single time today, I think. It just feels like it should be, and it really does. I've got a 1980 KZ440 right now that I worked on this winter, did some clean and polish on it, put it all back together. Have not yet got it out this spring. It's just been, I've been so busy with other stuff that it kind of got pushed to the back burner. But it should be ready pretty soon. And I really like riding that bike. I have had another KZ440 that I really liked, and they have that sixth gear, and I just think it does make a difference on these bikes. Not that, if you're commuting doing 55, 60, you don't really need to have that sixth gear, but my red line on this is 9.5, 96, something like that. I'm not sure if I'd take it there, but it's up there. So running at 6,500 at 60 miles an hour maybe isn't as bad as what I think it is, but Just seems like it could be down into a more comfortable range, I suppose. The guy that I bought my GL650 from lives just down there. And every time I went by his house when I rode it, I'd ride by and I'd say, "Thanks for the bike, Ralph." Because I watched it all winter sit out in front of his house, in front of his garage. And finally, like February or March, I stopped and asked him if he wanted to sell it, and he was willing to sell it, and willing to sell it for a good price. So I bought it not knowing anything about it, whether it ran or not, or any of that stuff. And then brought it back to life, and I guess that was my first revival. Brought it back to life and rode it for 3 years, 22,000 miles, and I sold it to an individual that is probably going to do the same thing. He bought it to ride it. So, and he knew what it was. He knew what it was, so he'd had one. It was that kind of deal. Forgot to cancel my blinker back there. The Ultra does it for me. That was probably the biggest change for me. Was I went from a 1983 Honda GL650 to 2008 Harley Davidson Ultra Classic. So not only did I switch brands and bike styles, but I also gained 25 years of technology, and I really feel like had I jumped on anything that was made in 2008, I would have been astonished at the difference, because I don't care what you get on in 2008, you got 25 years of advancement in technology and all kinds of different stuff going on a bike than what you did in 1983. So I just feel that way about it. And I didn't pick the Harley because of anything other than it was my uncle's, and I knew it was well taken care of, and it was going to be a good distance touring bike, which was what I was looking for. And I'd never had one, so I was like, oh, there's that car that I tried to get away from. I was behind him at that stoplight back there. And I went down Hotchkiss. I had to drive slow because the road, so that's why I got behind him. Had I been able to maintain my speed of posted speed limits, I would be in front of him right now. See, he's just driving, I don't know, he's driving kind of erratic for me. Bouncing all over the place. So we're rolling up towards the house and going to be coming to a close on this commute. And it probably would have been longer because this morning was so foggy. I basically deleted that video because I don't have enough space on this card to run an hour of video, and you don't want to watch an hour of video, so I was like, well, I'll do an afternoon ride home and edit that up, and we'll call that good. So this is coming up to a close on the CX500 Commute Part 2. It is a fine bike. I like riding it. Some things I need to correct are the front brakes, and I really feel like the carburetors are not really doing what they should be doing. Overall, there's a couple spots in them that I think need a little work, so maybe I'll work on those sometime this summer. Need to get to those brakes a little sooner than that. We are home. I did miss my Ultra this morning. Yeah, you just get used to riding something. I got 3,000 miles on that bike this summer already. It's end of May, so I do kind of miss riding it. the comfort of it. Yeah, that's a wrap. We're home. What can I say about this bike? It's a good bike. It's dependable. It's going to work really well for him. Be a good beginner bike for him to learn on, just to get used to all of it and everything. And we're going to wrap it up. So I want to tell everybody, when you're out there riding, ride safe.